friends, my name is Larissa and I'm the Director of Community Life here, if I haven't met you yet. Hello. I am doing the second video for UCOR and just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what it's been like in my classroom. So first, thanks Nina and Rick for doing the first one. I think it was great to kind of see into your class a little bit and what's working for you and what you guys are doing. And so I just kind of want to give a little bit of an overview of what my UCOR class looks like. So first is I have Janelle Kono as a peer mentor, and she is great. But one thing that's really unique about it is she actually has class at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays. And so we get her for about a half an hour and then she's off to class, which really just kind of makes it unique in our classroom environment and breaks that up a little bit. And we're trying our best to kind of find the balance of her kind of leading that first half and then me having a nice and easy transition to the second half. But I think that's something that we're still working on and kind of playing around with. So that's kind of like one unique dynamic about our group. The second one is it seemed like during orientation, so based on Janelle's information as an orientation leader, that they had an awesome group dynamic and group connections during orientation. They even like skipped a meal and had family dinner one night, which was really cool. So they got really, really close as a group. And on our first day, we had a few transfer students come in that weren't able to make it to orientation, as well as some things got messed up with the scheduling. And so we actually had some students join our group that weren't a part of their orientation group and happened to have it on their schedule to meet in our room at 8:30 on Tuesday. So that kind of added in a lot of unique group dynamics, and we ended up keeping all of our transfer students. Obviously they were naturally in our group, but those other students that came in that didn't know where to go, we kept them in our group. So we have over 20 students in our group, which has been interesting for like small group conversation. So Rick and Nina talked last week about they have a really tiny group with a lot of kind of classroom facilitators in there, and we kind of have the opposite. It's a lot of students with obviously Janelle, but only for one half of the class, and then myself. So what we kind of found is that these two kind of separate groups of like one being the orientation group and then these outsiders, it was not really working well with group conversation. No one was really talking. No one really wanted to engage with kind of the outsiders. And so we tried to follow the facilitation like discussion guides for 2 weeks, and we realized like that is not really working with our group and what that looks like. We felt like students, they weren't engaging well. They weren't being vulnerable or open. It was like pulling teeth to have them like even answer simple questions like, what's God doing in your life? And so Janelle and I kind of were talking about it and looked, and we just decided this is something that we really need to evaluate, because this will be really uncomfortable to continue with this style of like classroom and small discussion time for the whole semester. And so what we did is we said, okay, we're going to just kind of pause and try to meet them where they are and figure out what their needs are and what their desires are, and how can we in this classroom and small group setting like really help them meet those needs so that they feel like they're transitioning to Northwest well, because we do have all new students, that they feel like they're equipped to like be successful inside and outside the classroom, and that they feel connected to one another, where it's like a safe place to have deep and meaningful conversation. So in week 3, we decided we're just going to like have a discussion, and Janelle kind of began by talking about what she wished that she would have kind of known her first year at Northwest, and that what she wished she would have been able to have conversations about and kind of received maybe a little bit from classroom work, and especially like this small group discussion, and what she wished she could have had this look like. So she shared a little bit about her experience, and then we kind of just opened it up for like, what do you guys want to get out of this, and what will that look like, and how can we help in meeting your needs? And what we found is that students in our particular classroom definitely wanted some more connection with each other because they didn't feel like they knew one another. And that was one of the transfer students, multiple transfer students that kind of popped up and said that, which makes sense because they weren't part of orientation and a part of the orientation group where the rest of these students really got to know one another. So we kind of, yeah, chatted about a few other small things. They really wanted like out of classroom, like hangout time. And so we're actually having our next family dinner this week, and I'm excited to have them over to my place, and we're just gonna, yeah, hopefully have a little bit more of an intimate environment where students can build relationships. But one thing that really popped up with this idea of kind of growing in relationship with Christ individually, and then how to be a disciple and bring others to Christ. And so we are kind of going a little bit off the discussion guides in order to kind of meet the needs of our students and kind of their hopes of what they want to get out of this. And so we didn't really follow that for the last few weeks. Last week we talked about our personal relationship with Christ and how is that formulated and what does that look like when you're first getting to college, or kind of in these formative years of learning and growing, and how to make it your own and not just maybe what you grew up with, and also how to have like and create healthy habits of learning and growing in that relationship with Christ. So I feel like students, we ended up like even circling around the classroom instead of staying in these rows. We're in Rice 4, and it just was like uncomfortable and awkward. So we circled around and definitely had a lot more discussion, and people popped up. Those that have never really spoke before in class popped up and were saying things and kind of reflecting and being really vulnerable. And that is, I felt like we're kind of like easing our way into creating a more connected and engaged community group. So this week we are actually going to stick with, we're going into week 5, and we are going to talk about the strengths and kind of hopefully transitioning out of like, okay, what does your relationship with Christ look like? But then also like, how has Christ created you as an individual and the strengths that he's given you? And so we are going to use the discussion guide this week. And hopefully be able to pull out from Courage and Calling to a little bit of those questions or conversations and kind of just topics. But we're continuing to meet in a unique way. We're circling around. We're all going to either sit on the ground or in chairs and try to figure out, how to continue just to build this like safe zone and safe space for people to talk about. We also really talked about breaking up into smaller groups because our group is so large. It doesn't really provide the time or the space to be able to have everyone speak. And so testing that out this week by, having this overall group discussion and then maybe having some discussion topics or questions that we're going to break up into the smaller groups and talk about. So that looks really different for our group. That's kind of our UCOR group as a whole right now, kind of what that's looked like over the past 4 weeks. And as we go into week 5, we're really excited for our family dinner on Thursday. We hope that will also, and just connect, also aid in connecting them, just to be in a really informal, fun place, gathering around food and conversation. So anyways, I don't know if that's even helpful. It's not really educational. It's really just more like how our group has worked out and the unique dynamics that we've been facing and what we are hopeful for in the future. Janelle and I have kind of talked about looking at each discussion guide and trying to figure out, okay, like, does that fit in kind of what they've expressed as needs, or can we alter that in a way that maybe will meet their needs more as a group? So, it's been great being in this UCOR group. I'm really excited for what's to come, and I hope your UCOR groups are going well and that you're building relationships with these students. All right, thanks, y'all.